Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for the segment, we have Gary Cunningham, CEO of Prosperity Now, to discuss democratizing data on Black wealth. The BWDC aims to encourage informed dialogue amongst key decision makers about the systems and structures that aid in Black wealth accumulation and extraction. Gary, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Well, thank you, Jill. Thank you for having me.
You got it. And let's start with the basics here. What are the issues with Black wealth data?
Well, number one, there's not one place where you can get data on the economic inequalities for African Americans. And so we've created one with the Black Wealth Data Center. Number two, the wealth gap is gigantic, meaning Blacks have about 8 times less wealth than whites have today. And this is true for Latinx or Latino populations as well, that this gap is big, and for indigenous populations. And so we want an America that works equally well for everyone. We want anyone in America that believes that if they work hard, they do the right thing, they should be able to climb the economic ladder in America. And that's what we're trying to achieve at Prosperity Now.
Tell us about Black Wealth Data Center and the solution that it provides.
So the Black Wealth Data Center that was actually conceived by Mike Bloomberg at Bloomberg Philanthropies actually pulls together data from a lot of different sources so that people by zip code can understand what's going on in their community and what to do about it. Meaning, it's one thing to have data that says, here's these disparities, but also having some place you can go that has what has worked in other places, what are other people doing to address economic inequalities in America. That's really what the data center does. So rather than, if you're somebody in the community that's working to try to change the trajectory, or if you're an academician, or if you're an activist, or you're a politician or a policymaker that wants to see something different, the Black Wealth Data Center is for you.
And Gary, to your point, okay, we know the data says that there is this massive disparity gap, but more specifically, what do the data sets focus on?
Well, the data sets focus on housing, economic development, entrepreneurship. It focuses on what's happening in each one of these communities around racial wealth equity.
The BWDC is hosted and incubated by Prosperity Now and is funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies as part of the Greenwood Initiative. What does the platform provide access to, and what is BWDC's aim?
Yeah, and so if you're looking for data on what's going on with African Americans, for example, what happens with healthcare, how are their health outcomes for your particular neighborhood or your community, you can find that on the Black Wealth Data Center. Same thing with home ownership. Same thing with financial inclusion, meaning how well are loans going out to people of color in your community? How well are consumer loans, as an example, going out to places in your community? How well are entrepreneurs doing within your community? All these things matter if we're going to build an economic base within these communities. And it's not just going to be a social service solution. It actually has to be an economic solution that actually gets created by businesses and those that create jobs in community. But it's also by those folks that are working on the ground day to day to address affordable housing within these communities. So these things don't just affect African Americans, but if we address them for African Americans, we're going to solve them for most other people in our community.
Yeah, certainly great for the local economies that are served for sure. Can you quantify the efforts of the Black Wealth Data Center? Where are you seeing actionable and sustainable impact?
Well, I think all over the country, people are doing things in urban areas and rural areas, are doing things to actually address some of the racial wealth divide. So things like getting broadband access is just as important for people in rural areas as it is in people that are in urban areas that can't access these things. So I keep saying this, but it's so important, by addressing issues that affect Black wealth, we are addressing issues that actually help rebuild the middle class in America. So what's healthy for African Americans is healthy for all Americans.
All right, Gary, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
My total pleasure. Thank you, Jill.